So after my friend passed, before that happened, I'd never really thought about mental health or depression or how to effectively deal with mental health issues or talk about it. When there comes a point that someone just feels so depressed or so anxious or so stressed that you can't help, you want to be able to help earlier in the process, and I think that's kind of what I took away from that experience.
Your mic's ruffling onto it.
Okay. Hi, I'm Nina Pusick. I'm a first year studying sustainable development and politics, and I was a Nightline volunteer and am a publicity and fundraising coordinator currently. So originally when I came to uni, I heard about Nightline and it sounded like the work they did was really good. And earlier when I was 14, I lost a really good friend of mine to suicide. So depression and mental health issues were always something that was really close to me. And I thought that through joining Nightline, it would be a good way to do some service that I knew had a direct impact positively on the university.
So Nightline is a listening service, and we give support and information. So we're not there to give advice or lecture. We're really there just to listen. We listen to calls both on the phone and on an instant messaging service every night of term between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. And at the moment we have 2 volunteers on every night who take our calls, and it's entirely confidential.
Oh look, I'm posting.
It's been proven through many studies that just sort of the cathartic process of talking through your problems and just having someone, a supportive listening ear there to sort of, allow you to discuss what you're feeling can be really beneficial to sort out what's going on in your own head. The callers are also anonymous. We have no information about who's calling us unless they disclose that. But even if they do, whatever they say is entirely confidential. So it's a really good way for people who are going through anything from the smallest thing to the biggest thing to just sort of voice their feelings in a really safe environment, and nothing that is said in that phone conversation will leave the room. We only introduced the instant messaging a few years back, but now actually our calls are pretty much even between phone calls and instant messaging calls. A little bit more instant messaging than phone calls even now. It's actually something we've been working a lot on in our training, is improving our sort of active listening skills over Messenger, because that is really hard, whereas on the phone you can make a noise, and even in silence just being there is quite obvious because you're on the other end of the phone. They know that, and small validating noises can be really, really helpful, but you can't do that over an instant messenger.
When you come out and you I assume it's daylight, when you come out and you step outside, what's the kind of emotions that go through your head at that point?
So personally for me, it really depends on the night. Sometimes you have amazing calls and you have people who are thanking you so much at the end, and you have calls where you know for a fact that you made a difference in someone's life, no matter how small or how big it could be. But there are also calls that don't go as well and don't end the way that you would hope they would. And those can be quite emotionally stressful, but I think as a Nightline volunteer, you kind of have to learn how to process it as knowing that if you did the best that you can, if something ends not the way you want it to, it's not your fault. You did the best that you can. So leaving the office, it kind of depends.
I think that's actually probably one of the hardest parts of being a Nightline volunteer is that a lot of callers maybe don't understand exactly what the service is, and that is something that can be frustrating when a caller is looking for advice or validation. We're here to listen, not lecture, is kind of what we say. And I think that can be frustrating for callers, of course. And that's unfortunate. And it can be frustrating for us on the other end to be like, when you're wanting to help them as much as you can, but really we're not qualified, we don't know the whole story, we don't know what this person's situation actually is. But I think actually the fact that we don't give advice and the fact that we don't direct calls is, as much as it's frustrating in those situations, is actually one of the best things about what we do, because sure, callers can get frustrated with that, but at the same time, we're not there to tell people what to do, and the whole process of talking it through and figuring it out for themselves is sort of what's actually beneficial, and we're always looking to improve our services. Over the past few years, I think it's improved tremendously and grown, and we can only hope to keep doing that through sort of exposure and having people, you know, tell us what they're thinking about things, and yeah.
I don't necessarily think about my friend when I'm answering calls with those kind of content, but I do think about the fact that if I had known what I know now, or if people in general had known what a Nightline volunteer knows about how to address things like suicide, you would have significantly less instances, because if you have a group of people or a group of or peers in general who know how to address mental health issues appropriately, I do think there will be a lot less instances of suicide or suicidal attempts, because often suicide is 100% preventable. All it has to do with is getting help when you need it and encouraging people to seek help, and I think that's probably the most important thing. I think a big part of it is just getting people to understand that it's okay to talk about how you're feeling, and if you are feeling really bad, the best thing you can do is tell someone.